Hi, it's Corey Sievers here from the Savvy team, and welcome to another Wellness Whiteboard Wednesday. And in this session, I'm going to be chatting with you about 5 reasons you may struggle to lose weight. So if you're new to what we do here in the Savvy team, then consider subscribing if you're here on YouTube, or liking us and following us if you happen to be catching us on Facebook. So yes, in this particular session, 5 reasons you may struggle to lose weight. Interesting topic, and if you are new to what we do in the Savvy team, we do help you with all sorts of tips and tactics to help you maximize your health and lifestyle, and weight loss is just one of those particular areas. So these 5 tips I hope will help you, and there's some of the things that we cover in many of our masterclasses and web classes and online programs. So number 1 is chemical exposure. And there are a lot of chemicals that can really interrupt your metabolism, interrupt your hormones, and really stop your ability to effectively lose excess weight. Now, one of the classes of chemicals are endocrine disrupting chemicals. Now, these were identified by the World Health Organization in 2012 as, chemicals that can even be classed as what they call obesogens, directly trigger your body to hold on to stored fat. So, your exposure, your continued exposure to these EDCs from personal care products, from home cleaning products, from air fresheners, from all sorts of different sources can actually cause your body to be reluctant to lose that excess fat. Now, and so finding safer alternatives is such a wise move, and that's one of the things that we help you do. So food additives are another class of chemicals you'll want to avoid as well. So many of these things, they're in some of the packaged foods, obviously, and a lot of the times people because they're not sure about what sorts of foods to eat, they go for the diet products and everything. And this is where a lot of these foods, to make them taste good or store well, are filled with food additives. So the more that you can move towards a whole food diet, the better. Now that leads us to artificial sweeteners too. A lot of people sort of think, okay, well, I'll skip the sugar, and they start having artificial sweeteners, and this can cause a bit of a pattern interrupt in the brain too, and cause you to hold on to fat. Many of the artificial sweeteners can impact the thyroid or can disrupt the gut microbiome, causing you to have challenges with long-term weight management. So you really want to avoid artificial sweeteners too. And so really finding ways of reducing all avoidable exposures to chemicals will make such a big difference. To give you just an idea about how powerful this can be, we're really big on reducing chemical exposure especially when we're helping people with programs such as our Rapid Fat Loss Protocol, which is about losing fat as fast as possible. Now, we've had one particular lady that comes to mind was doing the Rapid Fat Loss Protocol, and she went to the hairdresser to have her hair done, colored and cut and all the treatment, all that sort of thing, and her weight loss stalled for close to a week. No dietary change, nothing else, but the influx of chemicals stopped her body losing weight. So that's just an example. Another person that was following the program, helped their family to sort of clean a house and move out. I think it was after moving out of the house or whatever, and so was involved in a couple of days of cleaning, and the weight loss stalled for more than 5 days after the exposure to chemicals. So it's a really important thing to do. And see, one of the things that many people don't realize is that if you're exposed to chemicals or have been exposed to chemicals, from your workplace or whatever, poor diet, etc., environmental pollution over a period of time, your fat stores are like the toxic waste dumps for your body. So your body has a tendency to go and shuttle some of the toxins out of the bloodstream and into the fat stores for sort of, long-term storage. So when you start to lose fat, then these need to be dumped into the bloodstream to be eliminated. And your body sometimes is reluctant to do that if there's this constant exposure to chemicals and you're not supporting your detoxification pathways, which we're coming to next. So you definitely want to find ways of eliminating exposure to chemicals, personal care products, cleaning, eliminate air fresheners, and all these sorts of things that might be spraying in your home. They can really interrupt your ability to shed fat. Leads us to the liver. Any chemicals that you're exposed to, your liver is going to need to detoxify them. So if it's already overloaded thanks to being on the typical Western diet and the typical lifestyle, then you're going to struggle there as well. So obviously optimizing your diet and eating clean can really make a difference to take the load off the liver. Eliminating the commercial seed oils like the canola oils and the safflower oils and these sorts of things, soybean oil, vegetable oils, deep fried foods and everything, that really will reduce not only inflammation in the body, but also the impact on the liver. But then there are some things that you can add to your diet to optimize things as well, such as the cruciferous vegetables, eating more broccoli, eating more, things like the cabbages and the sulfur-bearing foods such as garlic and onions and radishes and these sorts of things. But, really, if you're looking to shed fat, then supplementation and to optimize the liver just makes logical sense. And we use things such as the St. Mary's thistle, dandelion, green superfoods, broccoli extracts, these sorts of things to really help to ramp up the liver and its ability to detoxify and cleanse your body. So also in that, it's wise to avoid the things such as alcohol if you're looking to shed fat. Not only is alcohol a fuel source, but also obviously it can impact the liver. There are ways of still being able to have a little bit of alcohol now and then and still lose fat, but that doesn't have a place on, for example, our rapid fat loss protocol, because the faster you want to lose the fat, the stricter you need to be. It's sort of like, you put the foot down on the fat loss accelerator. The way you do that is by a stricter approach. So yeah, you'll want to look after and optimize your liver, and supplementation is the best way to do that. To give you an example, we've had people following our weight loss protocols, whether it be just on our rapid fat loss protocol or the body transformation challenge, even on the detox protocol and our Eat Savvy approach, which I'll talk about in just a moment. And their fat loss had stalled, so they were getting steady results, seeing their measurements change, getting comments from family members, seeing the scale weights change, and they were really excited, but then things just stalled. Now, they couldn't tie it back to any particular exposure or change in the diet and all that sort of thing. And all they needed to do to kickstart the fat loss again was double up on the nutrition, the supplements, such as the St. Mary's thistle and broccoli and dandelion extracts and those sorts of things to optimize the liver function. And then weight loss started again. So again, if your liver is not functioning or is overloaded, not optimized, then that could be something that you could do to really trigger improved fat loss. So the liver is one of the 7 detox pathways. So a lot of the times when people optimize their full detoxification system, they lose weight almost as a bit of a side effect, a positive side effect. So many people, we have a detox protocol, and using that alongside our Eat Savvy dietary regime, people often just getting going, leading up to maybe losing fat, they lose it almost just practicing. So many people, for example, if they've made a decision to do one of our fat loss protocols, but they weren't sort of quite ready or they were feeling run down, they tackle our detox program and follow our Eat Savvy approach before jumping on this true fat loss. And some people have lost 8, 10 or more kilos just practicing. They say, man, this is good. I wasn't even trying, and I started to lose excess fat. That's the power of optimizing the liver and the detoxification pathways. Another thing that can really stall your progress in losing fat and achieving your best body composition is stress. Stress really can mess things up. It messes up a whole bunch of the hormones that are at play in the body, and that can mess with your sleep. Messing with sleep can also interrupt the body's ability to shed excess fat. So what can we do to, we can't necessarily eliminate the stress in life, what can we do to help the body to cope better with the stress? Well, what we find is that when you become deficient in trace minerals throughout the body, then that can lead to more of a problem with dealing with stress. Okay, so same thing with B vitamins. So, you may have heard of minerals such as calcium and iron and magnesium and all these sorts of things. There are many of the macro minerals that we need all the time, and copper and manganese and all that sort of thing. But there's a whole array of trace minerals that you've probably not even heard of that should be in our food. And unfortunately, with modern farming techniques and the processing of foods, oftentimes we're deficient in trace minerals. And when you're deficient in trace minerals, that can lead to cravings of sweet foods, salty foods, the fattening foods. So if you've struggled with cravings, it could simply be that you're trace mineral deficient. If you've struggled with sleep, you could be trace mineral deficient. If you struggle with stress, it could be the same thing. So you can sort of see there's a bit of an interplay that goes on when we suffer these deficiency situations. But when you're under stress, you're going to be needing more trace minerals, especially like magnesium, for example. You're going to be burning up the B vitamins, and that's why stress formulas often have a high amount of B vitamins, because when you're stressed, you need more B vitamins, and when you're stressed, you burn up more B vitamins, and burning up more B vitamins makes you feel stressed, so it's a bit of a vicious cycle there. So, it amazes me that many people are still in this day and age with our food situation the way it is, and that they say all you need is a balanced diet. Well, that's true if you're eating perfectly, you're in a pristine location, you never get stressed and all that sort of thing. They have done research where they've looked at things such as trace minerals and B vitamins and multivitamins, for example, and found that those on a multivitamin regularly just tend to have a lower BMI across the board. Now, that's not causative. We could get into disagreement about studies and all that sort of thing. It's not causative, but it is correlative. So meaning that they've just said those who take multivitamins tend to be way less. Those who take trace minerals tend to weigh less. Now, they haven't necessarily studied the exact cause. What we've found is that those people's body operates better. They have less cravings. They tend to desire better foods. It could be psychosomatic. It could be all in their mind, but it's irrelevant because we see before and after effects that it's true. When you supplement, you get better results. So, throwing in a trace mineral and a B vitamin, some general nutrition really could help you not only to reduce your stress levels, not only to sleep better, but just to optimize your general weight loss efforts and your all-round well-being. Food sensitivities. Now, food sensitivities are one of those things that are sort of one of the underlying things that people don't ever look at, because we're told to, eat less fat, eat a good diet, a healthy diet, and yet we don't specifically eliminate our food sensitivities. Now, if you've struggled with fat loss in the past, then food sensitivities could be part of your issue. And you might go, but I don't even know that I'm sensitive to anything. I'm not allergic to anything. There's nothing that I can think of. That's the problem. Undiagnosed or unknown food sensitivities can still be causing rampant inflammation in your system and causing you to hold on at least just to water weight, and a lot of the times excess fat too. So that's why we put together the Eat Savvy diet, which is a free download. You can venture to our blog at savvy-team.com/HWW. Search for the Eat Savvy diet, and you'll find 12 steps to help you get started on the Eat Savvy diet. Now, we also have a download that's like a cheat sheet, a sliding scale to help you to choose the foods that are the lowest in sensitizers, like the lowest in things that will trigger sensitivities, and the highest in nutrition. So obviously if you looked on something like that and it was considered savvy, good to eat, yet you knew that you were already sensitive to that, then of course you'd eliminate that. The way we put the Eat Savvy diet together is a culmination of many, many different sources looking at how can we help the most people get the most benefit. So what we do find is that when people use that, they start to get better results with all of the other programs that they're on, because you're maximizing nutrition from your diet and eliminating the most sensitizers, the most chemicals, the most irritants, the most inflammatory agents from the diet. Some of the core food sensitivities that you might want to think about are gluten and all grains. So a lot of the times we see people who have been gluten intolerant, for example, and they still struggle with weight because they've moved off all of the gluten, but they're on still all of the other grains. And the grains are still having an impact on their gut, triggering inflammation and all sorts of other digestive disorders. So if you struggle with any sort of gluten intolerance, we would suggest that you eliminate grains altogether. Grains are also very heavy in carbohydrates and other inflammatory things such as lectins and whatnot. And these grains are so much so one of the biggest things that cause sensitivities and weight gain. Dairy, commercial dairy is another one. Not so much the high-fat dairy such as grass-fed butter and ghee and cream and all that sort of thing, but it's more the lactose and the casein in the milk. So a lot of people move to skim milk to lose weight because they've been on the low-fat diet craze, and they end up worse and with all sorts of mucus congestion, all that sort of thing. And this can be the lactose intolerance, but it also can be casein intolerance as well, whereas we don't see that for most people with the higher fat types of things, or the fermented dairy like really good quality yogurts and kefirs and these sorts of things, and even raw dairy can work for a lot of people as well. But you want to eliminate the food sensitivities. The best way is to download the free Eat Savvy Diet cheat sheet and just sort of eat in the green. That's your best bet. Now that leads us to insulin. Number 5 is insulin levels. Now, insulin is a big issue today because most people who struggle with weight gain have high insulin levels and have become insulin resistant. And this might be you if you've struggled with losing fat. The issue with this as well is that insulin resistance has been linked to a myriad of other diseases nowadays, right from obviously obesity, but to heart disease, to Alzheimer's, to polycystic ovary disease, to cancer. Like too much sugar and too much insulin in the system is really linked to a lot of different diseases. So it's a good strategic bet that your health will improve and you'll lose fat if we can lower insulin levels in the body and get you more insulin sensitive. So how do we lower insulin levels in the body? The primary best way to do that is to reduce carbohydrates and sugar. So just looking over here, what happens is when we eat, we will trigger insulin. Now, generalization, because certain foods will trigger insulin more than others, but generally when we eat, we trigger insulin. Now we have food and energy in the system, so that will trigger the storage of sugar and the production of fat in the liver. So that's what's normally supposed to happen. We have all this influx of energy after we eat. That will trigger insulin, which will trigger us to store it. We'll burn some, but we'll store most of it. So when we're wanting to lose fat, we're wanting to burn off excess sugar and burn off fat, right? So working back, we therefore need to reduce insulin levels. So therefore we need to reduce what we eat. Now, not the amount of calories. So most people think that we need to reduce the calories. But in essence, what we really need to be able to do is reduce the thing that triggers insulin the most, and that is usually the carbs and sugar. So, really you'll want to dramatically reduce carbohydrate intake. Now, the other thing that we have here, and by the way, this is why if we look here, one of the typical pieces of advice to lose fat is to eat often and graze throughout the day. Eat 8 small meals because it stokes your metabolic fire. Well, that's because they're talking about something called the thermic effect of food, meaning that when you eat, there's a bit of energy required just to burn up the food. And so it's sort of like some is wasted. So if we eat more small meals more often, then it keeps our metabolism high and we waste some energy just in burning food. But that's missing the fact that we're raising insulin right throughout the day. So if we think about the day, and let's say that you're burning fat while you sleep because your insulin's low, and then you have breakfast and you raise insulin, then because your blood sugar, what happens is we eat, our blood sugar raises, and then our body doesn't like high blood sugar, so it brings in insulin to reduce that down and shuttles it away and stores the energy for later, simplifying a few things here. And then what happens is if we're not in control of our blood sugar, we get hungry again. And so we don't even get to burn fat, and we eat again. And then, down again and up and down and up and down. And if we think about down here as being the fat burning zone, we're eating so often during the day that we never even get back into fat burning zone. The only time that we get a chance to burn fat is when we're asleep. And we're not very active then. So what we need to do is reduce the foods that trigger insulin. And certainly you can also reduce eating to produce more fat burning. So eliminating the snacks. You're going to have if you eliminate the snacks there, then your body's able to drop lower and maybe into the fat burning mode here because of the fact that you have skipped the snack. So certainly if you can get away with just 3 meals a day, and even then stretch it out with a little bit of fasting, like practicing a bit of intermittent fasting, and maybe only 2 meals a day, then you're going to be more likely to dip into your fat stores. Now, if you've struggled with losing weight, chances are you can't even imagine skipping a snack, let alone a meal. And this is because you haven't developed metabolic flexibility. So the first step is really to reduce those carbohydrates and end up with more higher fats. And this brings us to the next faulty bit of typical advice. You've got to eat lots of whole grains, lots of complex carbs, and a low-fat diet if you want to lose fat. Well, this is basically the advice that's triggered an obesity epidemic in our Western world, because that's what we've been told over the years. It's just not the best way to lose excess fat, because every time we have whole grains and complex carbs, we trigger insulin, we trigger hunger, and we end up storing more fat rather than losing it. And because of the fact that we're on low fat, we don't feel satiated. We feel hungry in between meals. And so this has been the biggest issue there. Now, this also leads us to the insulin. High insulin levels will turn off from too many carbohydrates and all that sort of thing, will turn off leptin signaling in the brain. Now, leptin is involved with your satiety. So this is really related to your hunger signaling. So what has happened today is we have such chronically elevated insulin levels and insulin resistance that our leptin signaling doesn't work properly. So therefore, you've got plenty of fat to burn, you're even trying to lose fat, but you're hungry all the time and you don't understand it because your leptin signaling's been messed up. So again, the same sorts of things that we're talking about here will help to gradually restore the leptin signaling as well. So again, chronically high insulin levels, it's been linked to so many different diseases. And then we come over here to, you get told to do more cardio because you've got to burn off that last meal. Well, there's not an efficient way to lose fat. You should look up the calories for an hour on the treadmill and look up the calories for the last meal you ate or the latte that you had or whatever. You can't out-exercise a poor diet. Okay, so really the best way is we need to tweak the diet, do some of these steps, lower insulin. Certainly cardio can be an advantage, but more for triggering the hormonal situation that we want and improving our all-round well-being rather than simply burning fat. One of the biggest challenges with cardio is that whenever you're exercising, your body is going to use a mix of fuel. So, really it can burn fat or it can burn carbohydrates. So the carbs can be stored in the liver and the muscles in the form of glycogen, and obviously we have our fat stores. And so when you're doing your exercise, you're burning a mix of fuels, and depending on the intensity, you can be burning more carbohydrates, to more fat. And so one of the challenges with most exercise is that you're actually probably burning off mostly carbs or glycogen stores in most of the exercise that's promoted, which means that afterwards you're hungry. So you're only burning carbs while you're exercising, and then you're hungry, and so you go and eat more food. And so when did you get the chance to actually burn fat? You don't. So most of the time, people are simply triggering more hunger, elevating cortisol levels, which is again also going to cause you to hold on to excess fat. So what we really want to do when we're talking about exercise is more of the weight training or high intensity training like sprint training that triggers a metabolic adaptation, triggers growth hormone, triggers a hormonal change rather than just thinking of it as burning calories. So I think that's really all I wanted to share with you about these 5 reasons you may struggle to lose fat and really maintain your best weight. If you have been struggling, then we do have programs to help you out. But certainly you can start with just the free Eat Savvy diet, which will help you with your food sensitivities. But follow some of these sorts of things. Really look to optimize your diet. And we have things such as our rapid fat loss protocol, which helps you to lose fat in the fastest way possible. We have our body transformation challenge, which is more for those who are active, who want to change their body composition, put on muscle and lose fat. We have detox protocol that many people lose fat with, as I mentioned before. But there you have it, 5 reasons you may struggle to lose weight. If you are looking for support, then we can help you. So it's Corey Sievers here, encouraging you to be savvy.